Hello and welcome to another episode of our Midweek podcast at First Baptist Sweetwater, where we strive to be the first responders of God's love. We're here in Studio C with my good friend and yours, Teek Hamilton. Teek, how are you this afternoon?
Doing good.
Feeling warm, right?
Yes.
Okay.
From the flameless Yule logs.
Don't let our audience in on
It's
on
like
all the
smokeless
secrets.
candles.
It is. Teek and I have been here all afternoon just chatting about things. And most notably, we're in our final Sunday of Advent this coming week. And one of the things that I feel like I ought to start with is a few corrections.
Okay.
Okay, I am not a Grinch.
Oh, Barbara King talked to you.
No, well, maybe, no, she didn't.
I mean, why would you think that?
Well, I got to thinking about this later in the incomplete way that I told the story Sunday. I'm not opposed to putting up lights. It is convenient in our neighborhood in Abilene that I don't have to put up lights.
Okay.
So I'm just leave it at that.
Well, you know, most of the time people are very engaged in worship and never text or anything during worship. But I might have received a text asking if I'd talk to you about your Grinchiness. I won't say who that was from. Totally ignore what I said earlier.
Well, I understand now how that could have been taken
Right.
from what I was talking about on Sunday. But what I was trying to say is that I really enjoy lights at Christmas.
Okay, good.
And I know you and I talk a lot about these weeks that are real sort of heavy into the Christian calendar, and the weeks of Advent are a part of that. And we get to kind of live out some of our experience and even preferences in the way that we direct our church and leading worship or teaching on Wednesday nights and Sunday mornings. And I've made the statement before that Advent's about music, and what I meant by that, to correct that, is that I'm not sure that most people want to come and hear a sermon as much as they want to hear songs and things that they're familiar with.
But Jerry, I'm not most people.
Well, that's news. That's news to our audience.
But yeah, I mean, you hear music everywhere you go. We ask the question, or you ask the question about what signifies Christmas for you, and the number of people that equate it with a song that they hear. Or, you know, even in the midst of griping about Christmas music being played at, you know, stores in October. I mean, music ends up in there a lot.
Yeah, I think since there's so many platforms for us to listen to music on in current world, I'm less opposed to hearing it earlier because it's still pretty much, I mean, even if it's not a message about Jesus, it's his season.
Right.
And so I don't mind talking about Jesus in September or singing about it.
I don't mind talking about Jesus in September.
So I'm less of the feeling and emotion that you have to wait, I guess. So, but so light was kind of what we were talking about Sunday. It's what the scripture text was about. And I think a lot of us that have experience with Advent, when we think of light, one of the things that we think of is the candlelight.
Right.
And not just the candles that we light from Sunday to Sunday, but the candlelight service.
Right.
And, you know, I think there's 2 times every year where, as the person responsible for the front of the building during those worship experiences that are pretty overwhelming, even though I'm supposed to be leading to some degree at those moments, candlelight is definitely one of those.
Yeah, candlelight, and then Ash Wednesday. Those are my 2 favorite.
Yep. Those are the 2 that really are striking, I think, as for us as we lead out in that.
And candlelight hinges on the Advent wreath and the candles that we light throughout that time. And it's been fun watching over the last 6 years now how the students, like, it's in their mind, it's ingrained as a part of their tradition, what the candles stand for, why we have a pink candle, what the white candle is, and you do not light that white candle too soon. If you're going to make an accident, make it by lighting the pink candle, not the purple candle, but do not light that white candle, because we're not getting Jesus here before the 24th.
That's right. Well, I shared with our folks on Sunday that I've been reading a lot about candles and candlelight and how it connects us during this season. One of the things, and in talking about all of the symbols, we've used in the past blue candles, I believe last year.
Oh yeah, talking about the night sky.
Right. And but the other one that we don't talk a lot about is the evergreen candle.
Right.
And so, as we finished staff meeting this morning, we're thinking through our experience this year, thinking and talking about adjustments or things that we might want to do in next year.
Right.
And that's one of the things I'm interested in exploring a bit more, because it's sort of a forgotten thing. It's really, I guess, associated with hanging of the green, right?
Yeah, and you can, I would assume gold can be worked in there. You can, any of those colors that we use at Christmas can be used for Advent because they have meaning to them.
Right.
And if you can make pink work, and that's one of the traditional ones, then really any of those colors that we have, that we use to decorate with, that has tradition, has meaning, it has symbolism, and it helps tell the story of Advent. We don't have to be locked into just that one thing.
Well, and I think once we start to understand that, then those colors take on meaning for us throughout the year. So when we get to the place where they put the purple robe on Jesus, then there's that connection to back to the experience of Advent.
And you said hanging of the green. That's one of my most vivid memories from when I first started experiencing and celebrating Advent, and it was at Cross Point, because Cross Point had lower ceilings, and so you were able to actually hang stuff on the walls and put up lights and things like that. We're a little limited here in our worship space because of how high everything is. You can't really do that as a part of a worship service, but that traditionally is that first Sunday experience, is hanging the green and talking about the symbolism of that. We still do that in youth room because we got, again, lower ceilings, and you're able to do that and reinforce those symbols. I
think if you and I were to binge on some Hallmark movies one afternoon, we could capture what that hanging of the green service could look like.
Do you get Hallmark Movie Channel? Because I don't.
Well, you can come to my house. You're
I'll
welcome
pass.
to my house.
If you have Hallmark Movie Channel, I'm out.
But that is one of the more challenging weeks because of the difficulty of what are the permanent arrangements.
Right.
And then also the timing of that one is rough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's right after Thanksgiving usually.
And the evergreen thing got me wondering if you couldn't move it up. Having a bit of a staff meeting moment here. Mm-hmm. But anyway, something to think about later.
Yep.
Because apparently I'm maybe a little bit too legalistic with Advent, according to some of my friends.
Your friends could be wrong. We got to consider that because I know the friends you're referring to.
True.
But we did up in youth, because we do kind of parallel Advent with what we do in here in worship. We did a pre-Sunday, the Sunday before Advent, where we talked about the symbols, because the other 4 Sundays were going to be led by the students, and I didn't want to take away from their preparation and planning for what I thought was still important. So we did move it up 1 week. We decorated, we did that kind of thing, but we didn't do anything official like light an Advent candle or turn on the actual lights. You can't do that yet. I had to wait till after Thanksgiving.
So I made a mental note there. Mm-hmm. So remind me that I made a mental note regarding that for next year.
Okay, sounds good.
We're going to steal your youth ministry idea.
Yes.
And it wouldn't be the first time.
Yeah.
Well, so let's talk about candlelight for a second. We've briefly mentioned Sunday that we want to do something different this Christmas Eve because of the spike in numbers with the virus, and then just the uncertainty of what kind of group to expect in our church, and then the close proximity that we would all be, and then the number of guests, not wanting to provide an environment that wouldn't be as safe as possible.
Right.
So we're batting around some different ideas. We've got the basic framework together, but it centers around really a couple of things. One is the not wanting to ignore that as God's people, we want to be aware of what God is doing in the world, and this has been a very challenging year.
Right. Definitely.
And you don't want to create that story where it's simply a negative story.
Right.
Because it's still a part of God's story.
Right. We can get into theology of evil and suffering and all those type of things when it comes to pandemic, but the truth of the whole thing is that God is working in and through this, and should be working in and through God's church. that it's not just a negative experience the whole time, that there are new things happening, and that we can be a part of those if we're willing to experiment a little, I guess.
And so what we're hoping is that as a part of acknowledging what's happened in the world, that and realizing that this is a story that we'll be telling for the rest of each of our lifetimes,
Right.
In different ways, we wanted to try to connect that story and the reality that we've all lived in with this greater story of God through candlelight.
Right.
And so one of the things that emerged in this process of our brainstorming and discussion was a practice that Americans started in colonial times of placing a candle in the window. Now, I've always been drawn to that, but most of the time it's because they have these beautiful homes, beautiful front architecture,
Right.
with a second story and with the candle lights in all of the windows. I decided to find out what that was about.
Okay.
And as it turns out, there's a lot of stories that evolve around that candle being lit and placed in the window.
Cool.
So what we want to do during this candlelight, or actually this last week of Advent, the week
Right.
of Christmas, is we want to participate with our congregation and others in a conversation around this light. And there are several things that it means, and we want to let this story evolve with a different theme each night.
Right.
That we'll be presenting on at least Facebook Live and maybe some other formats. But we'll start this Sunday by giving every family a candle.
Yep.
And then introducing the way that we're going to lay this out so that they can participate each night. And of course it will be archived, but we'd encourage you just to go ahead and reserve some time at 7 p.m. Each night next week. That way you can tune in live with us and hear the meditation, hear the thought,
Right.
and then we can continue to learn to tell this story. So then we come to Christmas Eve, we'll have a special way to kind of draw us toward the Christ candle and that final experience that we have and understanding the light that we've all received.
Right.
And so anyways, that's sort of a little bit of clarification and a little bit of promotion, I suppose, about kind of what we're planning and what we're thinking. We do believe that this is an opportunity for us
Right.
to learn to tell the story.
Yeah.
And we don't want to, we can't go back to 2019. It's not 2021 yet.
Right.
We're living in this time, and we want to interpret God's story for us right now.
Right.
And so I'm excited about the opportunity that we have to seek a new understanding of this, but also to share some of that understanding with generations to come.
When you said set aside the 7 o'clock time frame for the Christmas week,
Right.
And we're not planning on taking 30 minutes or an hour. It's a short time, and in today's technological world, most people are on their phones anyway on Facebook, and so you can pull it up at 7 o'clock. You can watch it as a family. If we already talked about how crazy it is with like basketball schedule and things, if you're at a basketball game, you can pull that out and just
Right.
pull it up right there and watch it. And if you're with friends, invite them to watch with you. I mean, sometimes you might have family over or something like that. Say, hey, it's 7 o'clock. This is our priority. We want to be a part of this. It's building to our experience on Christmas Eve, and I'm excited about it. I don't think it's too much to ask. And
Yep. And I think it's something like I said, it's rather than it's different than another year. But if we can lean into this and understand this through a different experience, then every Christmas Eve here far will be different for
Right.
us.
Right.
That we'll remember this season, remember this time. And so we're excited about it, excited about this opportunity to kind of walk with folks, to interpret this and to be a part of it. So hope that you'll be with us on Sunday. If you're not here with us live to receive a candle, you can receive one of those during the week. We'd encourage you to come by Monday if you could, or you can just get a candle for yourself, but sort of designate a candle that you'll be placing in your window. So we're looking forward to that and looking forward to being able to talk more about that and to roll out all the details and how you can follow. Now, the best way is going to be to subscribe or follow us on Facebook. Make sure that you're on that page. You may use the other platforms as well, but primarily this is going to be coming through Facebook Live. So we invite you to do that, and we look forward to being a part of your very special Christmas this year.
See you Sunday.
See you.